Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about my ex was more avoidant than me.
Is it possible?
It can be. In fact, it probably is. If you got broken up with, they probably were more avoidant than you, right?
Maybe.
Let's face it. Because I would say more avoidants do the dumping than anxious people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Although there are a lot of fed up anxious people.
Yeah,
so.
They do get fed up at times when they can't take it anymore, and they just get so frustrated and disappointed. But if you were typically more avoidant in your relationships, it can be really shocking to find somebody that's even more avoidant than you. And when it happens, you're not used to it. You're like, what is this dynamic? I feel this anxiety all the time. It sets you off. You can't concentrate. It's confusing. But it happens all the time. Now, the thing about avoidance, it's very interesting, the dynamic, if you have two avoidants dating. It's like two magnets almost repelling each other. There's no attraction pulling together. I guess there is some, but a lot of times it's like a little bit of, and then pushing away.
Yeah.
And it can feel very frustrating. Like no needs are getting met. We're not seeing each other. Plans keep getting canceled, and it kind of feels maybe pointless or fruitless. Nothing's really amounting to anything at that time. So here are some things that we have noticed about these situations, and having a better understanding of how people tend to be in relationships can really clarify a lot of things.
Right. So if you've noticed that this is your first time dating somebody who is more avoidant than you, I will just say, welcome to anxiety. For many of you, it can be very jarring to feel like the more anxious party in a relationship when you are used to being the one who asks for a lot more space. And so this alone can put you in a position where you find yourself asking for more than you normally would, or you find different parts of yourself being activated, your thoughts start to spiral more, you start to feel a lot more uncertainty in the relationship, and that can feel very strange.
Yeah.
So this is something that does happen, and you start to notice when you are dating somebody who is more avoidant than you.
Check out my video, The Real Reason Relationships Fail. It talks a lot about how anxiety impacts us.
Yeah. And it can be scary to be the one who loves more. You know, as you are an avoidant, you know, you more likely are self-protective, you are more likely hyper-independent, you know, you are more concerned with getting that space and really avoiding that vulnerability.
Yeah.
So you being the one who is loving more, or who's, you know, more anxious just because that person is more avoidant, can feel scary. You know, it can feel like your heart is on the line, something that you aren't used to, something that you normally don't do. Because of this dynamic, these types of partners can have you hooked.
That's right.
And this is a very interesting dynamic because you go from generally being the one who is more distant to now you're more of the pursuer in the relationship.
Yeah. It kind of feels like you're spiraling out of control, right? Like you just almost like you're in a tornado and you don't know up and down, and you're grasping at anything. You don't know what to do because you're just constantly in this state of panic.
Yeah. And when you generally date more anxious people, you have this sense of security, knowing that they are more concerned that you are going to leave them.
That's right.
So there's this sense of confidence that, okay, my partner is going to be there. You know, sure, there is that dynamic that you fear that, you know, they might smother you, or you feel that you'll lose more of yourself than anything, but you know that they're going to be there. When you're dating somebody who's more avoidant than you, it's a risk, vulnerability. So it's all part of that.
And abandonment.
Yeah, all part of that same fear. Yeah.
And it's a big one. So when you may find yourself in a situation like this, it feels very different. And it can leave you confused and like you don't have the answers you normally do. And somebody like this may have you projecting a lot of fantasies on who they are, and that they're this amazing, magical person that is the one for you. and that they're so different than everybody that you've dated. And the space allows you to create a lot of attraction in your mind about who they are and who that you're hoping they're going to be. And so space is big in relationships as well as closeness. Those two things are both really important. This is why we tell you to work on your attachment issues, because if you don't, you're going to struggle with either one of those big time or both of those. The healthier you are, the better you can navigate both of those things. So you may find that this person that you're dating is comfortable with giving you space, and they're totally fine and relaxed and independent, and you're stressed and afraid they're going to abandon you and they're going to cancel plans for this weekend that you were really looking forward to.
Yeah.
And then you just get so overwhelmed with these anxious feelings that a lot of times you don't act confident and fun and relaxed anymore, and you get so anxious that you wind up pushing the avoidant away.
And it's interesting because we have this sense of, where is this anxiety going to go? Am I always going to feel like this in the relationship? And what happens when we break up? And a lot of times our anxiety gets even worse after the breakup. We start thinking, what happened here? I was the one investing more, if anything. Why would they leave? And if we've never been dumped, or we've always been on the other side, on the person who calls the shots, it's very strange for us to feel rejected in this way. We're used to rejecting people before they can reject us. We kind of feel beat to the punch a bit, and that can be scary. And yes, people can get anxious after a breakup, even if they are avoidant.
Yes, that's important. Say that again.
Even avoidants can become anxious after a breakup. And this is a really big misconception that's out there, that just because they're avoidant, they can push it away forever and never think about it, and it's just disappeared in thin air. No. Even avoidants can feel anxious.
Yes.
And so that doesn't mean that an avoidant person naturally develops an anxious attachment style for the rest of time. Normally, it's circumstantial. It's because they are dating somebody more avoidant than them. And we have to remember that attachment styles are something that is fluid. It is a spectrum, and it's also subjective and very relative. So, what I see as very anxious might be different than what Craig sees as very anxious or very avoidant.
That's right.
So you have to go back and really look at the patterns in your life. What am I normally like in relationships? What have my relationships been like? Have I generally been the more avoidant party, or have I actually really been more of the anxious person? So ask yourself these questions to really figure out what your attachment style is, and that can be helpful. So if you do find that you are typically avoidant, just because you are anxious now does not mean that your work stops. A lot of people think, well, I'm feeling really anxious now, so I need to work on my anxious attachment style, when they're truly avoidant and have been avoidant for years. This right now is a really great opportunity to connect with what you are feeling. You are feeling, it's going to be controversial, but you are feeling probably what you have made partners feel like a lot in relationships.
It's true.
And so this is a unique opportunity to be able to connect with that, and that will help you better empathize with others and become a better partner in the future.
That is so huge, and I do say that to avoidance on calls. You gotta take this feeling that you have now, sit with this. You see this feeling, you don't like it, right? This is what you've been doing to people. You gotta be aware of this. You don't want to make somebody that you love feel like this, right? No, I don't want that. Of course not. But that's what you're doing. So you have to be aware of it and change it.
Yeah. And so this I really see as a really good learning opportunity. If you are in this situation, your ex, you realize now, was super avoidant, and you realize that you're avoidant too, your work continues. Continue working on that emotional muscle, on being more aware of what's going on within you, being more aware of what's going on within your partners. And with that, also think about your needs and wants. So this person might not be able to have the capacity for even your avoidant needs. Meaning you have to think about, is it worth it to be in this relationship? Is it worth it to reconsider this relationship? And really, what do you want? And in what ways did your own anxiety affect the relationship? So a lot of different things to consider. And of course, each situation is different, so it's hard to speak generally about this.
Yeah.
But I hope you understand the point I'm trying to make here.
It's so true, because we're not really sure a lot of times what our attachment issues are, because we're like, I've never been in this situation before. I thought I was this, but in this relationship I was that. So a lot of it does have to do with who you were dating and how they were in the relationship. But we have tendencies in who we tend to date in our relationships. But you're in a unique position where now you have to learn to be okay with giving space.
Yeah.
Which is nothing you're usually feeling, because you're usually feeling somebody's always trying to come in and close that space. And you're used to pushing people off.
Yeah.
But now you're desperately wanting that space to fill in and to get close to them. And so you're now on the opposite side of it. And so you really got to understand what it's like, and it can give you, like Victoria said, empathy to understand each person's need and a connection, and that will create a stronger connection. So now you know what it feels like when you've been smothered. So now you've got to learn, okay, now that I'm the other side of it, I didn't like it when it happened to me, now I can't smother. So
Right. And this is hard because this can be one of the most triggering types of dynamics for someone who's more avoidant. You're basically forced into a place of vulnerability that you probably didn't know you were signing up for in the beginning.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it probably felt nice. Oh my God, this person respects my space. Until you're like, wait a minute, I actually want to spend time with them. I actually want to see them. And so this can be really triggering. Please take care of yourself. Once again, think about your needs and your wants, and really be proud of yourself for being able to get this far, to have the awareness to be able to decipher and determine how you've been treated and how you're treating others.
Keep learning about attachment styles. They will give you a lot of insight into who you are and what your issues are and what your issues are with your partners and the people that you date. Because when you learn to navigate those things, relationships go so much easier. There's a lot less fighting. There's a lot less disruptions and things that weaken a connection.
And I also hope that this experience doesn't discourage you from continuing to pursue relationships or authentic connection. Because if you already are typically more avoidant, and then you put your heart on the line and then it gets completely destroyed, you can see this story as one of, I was vulnerable and I got my heart broken. I'm never doing that again. But with time and with healing, this will soften too. So if anything, you should be proud of being able to be in this position where you were the one who loves more. And there's actually research out there that says the person who invests more tends to have higher relationship satisfaction.
Interesting.
I know it's a bit counterintuitive because we always think, man, if we're protecting ourselves, that's better. Sometimes yes, sometimes it's okay to love.
Well, love is incredibly powerful and it drives us. And even avoidants want love and connection. It's harder for them because they probably had a lot of abuse and neglect growing up. If an avoidant says they didn't, don't believe them. Look closer at the story. There's probably a lot of turmoil in their childhood. Maybe parents with personality disorders or mood disorders or alcoholism, whatever it may be. But a lot of those things happen. You don't just wind up avoidant if things were great.
Yeah.
So.
And check out our other videos on this. We have tons and tons and tons of videos on avoidant attachment style.
Probably at least 1,000.
Probably.
All right. And if you want to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you need.
She's great. Click on her name at the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.